Okay, hello, good morning. If it's morning for you, everyone. It is a cold January day here in California, but thank you guys so much for joining KETIV Virtual Academy. Today's session is on product optimization using Tacton, and today's actually going to be a pre-recorded session. We had a little bit of a scheduling issue, so we're going to be hearing from Joshua McBride. If you have any questions during the session, you can drop them in the chat, and I can have Josh email you, or I can email you. But I'll also leave Josh's email in the chat as well if you'd like to email him any questions you have throughout the session. Sorry about that. We just had a little bit of a scheduling issue. But we still have the whole session here for you today. This is part 3 of our series on Tacton CPQ. We have 2 other sessions surrounded by or around this topic. Those are on our YouTube channel as well as on our website. You can check those out. I wanted to also drop some other resources that we have for you on ketiv.com/resources. So you can check those out. We have ebooks on using Tacton CPQ and more. Oh, it looks like Javier is joining us. Hello, Javier.
Hi, good morning.
Javier will be here during the session. If you have questions and want to leave them in the chat, he could answer those during the session. I don't know if he'll be here by the end though. Thanks for
I should be, yes.
I was just letting everybody know that we have resources, put the link here. And then I also wanted to invite everyone to our Manufacturing Innovation Workshop series. We have a few sessions coming up and you can check them all out on this page on our website.
All right, looks like we're ready to start our KVA for today. We're gonna be in our kind of third session here of Tacton and looking at kind of its capabilities and getting into the back end and looking at how we can do things. So today we're gonna be covering guided selling with Tacton CPQ. And let's just, we'll move on here. So for the agenda, we'll have a quick introduction regarding me and KETIV and kind of what our goals are. Then we're gonna look real quick at, once again, what is CPQ? And then we're gonna do a quick review of the last presentation because this kind of builds on that. And then we'll look at product optimization. We'll do a quick look at kind of what the typical process is. And then we'll talk a little bit about Tacton AI and how it's able to help in this area and achieve some things that aren't typical. And then we're going to look at how Tacton is planning for the future in this product. So real quick, I am Joshua McBride, and I'm a Senior CPQ Solution Architect at KETIV. I've got 20 years of engineering and automation experience, and I recently worked at Blue Origin on their lunar lander project and decided to come to KETIV and really enjoy working here. One of my many hobbies is traveling and camping with an RV, and I guess maybe I'll get a picture here next time, but recently went out to Olympic National Park in Washington, spent like 3 weeks traveling around that area. And it was awesome. So let's move into who is KETIV, and really, which most of you are familiar with KETIV, but I really want to reiterate that our goal is to revitalize American manufacturing for a better tomorrow. And so we really want to partner with manufacturers and engineers in order to achieve this goal. So the question is, how do we achieve that goal? So as your partner, we seek to increase your efficiency and productivity from customer engagement all the way through manufacturing and service. So we've typically been highly, highly focused on the engineering and manufacturing side of things, but with KETIV partnering with Tacton, we are able to bring the customer engagement side to this this whole process with Tacton CPQ. And this is really important because all downstream processes are fed by the interaction with the customer. And I really want to highlight that because I know most people that are going to be watching this are engineers, right? And they're like, look, I don't have much to do with that. But the reality is all of the information that comes to the engineers is coming from the upstream processes revolving around the customer. And Tacton CPQ can really provide the efficiency all across the board by getting that first step right and really collecting that information. So let's talk a little bit about what CPQ is in that aspect. So CPQ stands for Configure, Price, Quote. And the reality is I know a lot of engineers, because particularly having done engineering for a very long time, I was very much in this seat a lot, right? Where I was being asked to do a lot of these different aspects, and particularly when you have what are typically termed sales engineers, right? Somebody who's highly educated on the product and is highly skilled. This is essentially what they do. And so we want to make that as efficient for them as possible. And this is where Tacton comes in. And KETIV is the exclusive reseller of Tacton CPQ in North America. They have had incredible success over in Europe. And we saw that and decided to partner with them so that we could bring the whole process to our customers and really help to make them as efficient as possible. So there's automation, their automation uses patented AI that was developed at the Swedish Institute of Computer Science. And this brings some incredible capabilities that make not only implementation much more efficient and easier, but really makes it so that engineers, who are really the ones that are in control of the product design, that they can actually go in and create the product definitions and automation, because it simplifies that process so much to where you're not doing the typical computer programming in a language like JavaScript or VB. So with that, you use constraint-based configuration. And this is basically creating attributes or values that associate to the product. And then you can begin to define that product down, whether that's through equivalencies, greater than, less thans, and so forth. Once again, rather than the typical, Visual Basic programming or something along that line. This also provides for product design optimization, and that's what we're really going to look at today. There's also interactive visualization. We'll see a little bit of that today as well. And there's augmented reality. That's a huge advantage for customers, where they can literally see and walk around and step into their product in their particular configuration. And as we've already hit, it's easy to implement and maintain. And something I didn't highlight there, but there's also CAD automation that can be attached to it, so that the configured product can then move into CAD, create drawings, and feed the shop. So once again, another big piece that we'll look at some point as well, that is big for engineers. And so that really frees up sales engineers and your typical product engineer to really utilize their skills in advancing the product rather than doing the mundane, repetitive tasks. So quick review of guided selling, which is what we covered last time. And really just as a quick review, the focus is on the customer needs, right? Collecting that customer information. So we had the example of a truck, so there's the average distance to be driven, terrain type, speed, country and state regulations, and so forth. Collecting that information, the Tacton CPQ product can then create and provide a solution based upon that information, rather than asking the customer or the sales engineer to try and derive what it is the customer really wants or needs, right? A lot of cases we have customer wants, but then we really have needs, right? And so we want to make sure we hit those needs. And this provides a way of collecting and analyzing and that information, and then producing a product based upon that information through AI and automation. So the way this does this is we have these different sets of rules, right? And so in this example, for instance, we have these technical rules, right? Then this is generally the rules that the engineers are dealing with. So we have all these possible configurations of the product, but then we apply these technical rules, and it limits it down to kind of what we see within this orange area, right? Then we maybe have marketing rules, right? We only want to sell these types of products so that we're, making the most profit we can. So that narrows it further, right? And we have maybe local rules or regulations, right? That may be to country, state, and so forth. And that's going to limit things further, right? So we can see those interactions. And then we take the guided selling, the user inputs, and that's going to limit things even further to where we now have this set of possibilities within the configuration of that product. So with product optimization, what we're able to do is we've collected the customer needs. We've now narrowed that field of possible configurations, but we still have a set of possible configurations, not just one configuration, right? So what we do is we then provide the user the ability to say, okay, I want the lowest priced version that still fits within these parameters, or I want the best performing version, or the lowest carbon footprint. I know that's not a big deal in the US right now, and we're going to look at this here in a little bit, but over in Europe and other places across the world, this is really becoming a big deal, particularly as regulation begins to hit. And it could also be things like, what's the shortest delivery time, right? I need it quick, and I need these particular attributes, but I need it in the shortest time possible, right? And it could be anything else that we choose to define. So that results in, once again, really tightening up this loop. A lot of times we have the sales engineer attempting to do this. And once again, highly skilled, highly knowledgeable, but there's so many possible configurations, so many scenarios that it becomes very difficult to do that, and particularly to do it efficiently, right? So that'll really tighten that loop down, which once again allows the sales engineers and our standard engineers to really focus on utilizing their skills, whether that's through custom products or enhancing the product, or for a sales side to interact and sell to more customers. And so it really reduces the amount of time that is spent doing this. It also provides an analysis tool, providing more possibilities that can be evaluated. And of course, extensive calculations and research typically results in a best guess, versus by having the AI and automation do this, we can be fully confident in its results. So if we go kind of back to our example here, once again, we have this array of possible configurations that we've now narrowed down, but we still have a set of possible configurations within that. And so what the AI in essence does is it understands all the possible configurations available to it. And so then we go, okay, I want to pick the lowest weight. Well, then it will find within those possible configurations what that lowest weight is, which kind of in this visual example would be, in this far corner, or the lowest price, maybe in this corner, or the shortest delivery time, and so forth. We can also, that AI has the capability to then go, what if I want a combination of these? I want to optimize, in fact, all of them. Well, then it'll take an average and give us kind of a central point, right? Or we want the lowest weight with best performance. Then once again, it'll kind of find what that best situation is between the two. So we can optimize based upon multiple parameters. So before we get into our demo, I want to talk a little bit about Tacton as well, in that they are constantly looking to advance their product, and particularly working in their product. And anybody that does will get a lot of updates. It's very common to go into the administration environment and have that notice down at the bottom saying, okay, there's an update. And in some cases, we'll see some new abilities pop up, new choices pop up. So they are really working on their product constantly, rather than just sitting on it and going, well, it works great. It's great as is. We have the best. They want to continue to make sure that they always have the best. And so with that, one of the big pieces that they've had recently is the sustainability, is what they call it. And although it's focused particularly on carbon footprint, we'll see that in our demo, it can be utilized to optimize and analyze in any way that you so choose. And we'll look in the admin environment so you can see kind of how that's done and how you could ultimately use it to optimize and display different types of information. So with this new capability, they provide product lifecycle analysis and sustainability. And once again, we'll look at that in detail, so I'm not going to go too deep right now. But the customer can ultimately optimize based upon the lifecycle analysis. And in this example, we're going to see that being done with carbon footprint. And once again, this is a big deal in Europe, and I think we could probably expect at some point to make it to the US, whether that be regulation or whatever. And so, that also provides analytical ability to improve product and manufacturing sustainability. So, the point there is this cannot just be only a customer tool, but a tool for the engineers, manufacturing engineers, and just the business in general to analyze their products and improve those products and improve their methodologies, right? Because once again, we have a tool that is capable of understanding all the possible configurations. So then we can, within seconds, look at these different configurations, see what the result is, and then determine, okay, is this, an area we can make improvement, not just on the product, but on how we manufacture that product or the processes involved by utilizing this particular tool. So we're going to go ahead and hop into the demonstration. We'll just look at the, let's see here, there it is. So first we're going to look at kind of the customer interaction and how that looks, and then we'll get into the back end and see how we can actually do this optimization. And so first we're just going to look at general product optimization, and then we'll get into the life cycle and sustainability aspect. So here, and I'm going to refresh to make sure it hasn't timed out here. Okay. So let's hop into our solution, or I'll just add a new one here. So this is an elevator, and you'll see here on the right side loading, we have visualization, right? So we can kind of see the results. And we have the initial customer information. So I'm going to, I'll increase my number of floors. We'll say it's an 8-floor building. I want a few more passengers, 5. And of course, as I make these changes, we're getting immediate results. So if we look at the BOM here, and we can see the total BOM here, and we now have the option to optimize, right? So maybe we want this to, our customers are most concerned about moving quickly. So we want a high speed. So we're going to optimize on high speed, and you can see immediately there are changes in the BOM in order to reflect that situation. And of course, what may be high speed, the abilities there, what's needed, as you can see here, is going to change, okay, based upon the number of passengers. And we can see I cannot select 12 because we cannot have high-speed performance with that large amount of people. And so I'll go ahead and accept that. We'll have it switch to no. And in fact, I'm going to undo that. So it'll give the configurator the ability to make changes, and I'm going to reduce this here. And so we'll say, actually, I want low noise. I want it to be quiet. This is a very high profile building. and we want it to be as nice an experience as possible. And of course, as you saw, as soon as I clicked that, we had changes to the BOM that resulted. And so once again, very simple example, we could have more than this. But we can see too, when I click low noise, I no longer get the option for a high speed, because we cannot have high speed and low noise at the same time, right? So the configurator is not only making these selections, optimizing based upon the customer needs here, but we also are getting feedback, right? And it's allowing the customer who doesn't know a lot about the product, and it may be the customer, it might be, you know, a new sales engineer or whoever is utilizing this to create a configuration. It's giving them feedback. So they don't have to have that deep knowledge and understanding of the product, because that is built into the software. So I'm not going to go too deep into this because we looked at this, but you know, we could go in and set our different building characteristics and our different solution parts that we want or don't want and so forth. But we'll finish and save here. And then we'll actually look at the back end and kind of how this is achieved. And I know when I first got into it, I was kind of surprised at how easy it was actually to do. So in our back end, we're going to go to the product modeling drop down here. We'll go to the product models and look at our hydraulic lift. And here we can see some of the different aspects of the needs that we're trying to make sure that we get from the customer. But if we go over here to value assignments, and there's quite a bit here, but we'll hit some specific ones so you can see what's going on here. But this is where we ultimately apply the optimization. So now to do that, when we create the product model, which we looked at kind of our first demo, we actually created one, a simple one. But when we create that product model, we want to create it in a way that it has a range, right? So simply something as simple as, say, a length, right? The customer can provide a specific length, they can provide a specific length, but within the product model, we've just set limits to say that length can be from X to Y, right? So let's say, 10 inches to 100 inches, right? So that provides a range for the configurator to select from. So then now that we have a range, we can then have the configurator select the simplest thing is the lowest or highest of that range. And so, for instance, that's kind of what we see here is so we'll look at the high speed optimization criteria. Okay, so here we say, okay, we've got the high speed is set to yes. We're going to utilize these materials. Okay, and that would probably be for endurance, for instance. We're going to utilize these materials. Transportation duration, so that's going to be an attribute within the model that has some calculations applied to it, some open-ended calculations in a sense. So we're going to say we're going to make that the smallest, okay? And it's simply as simple as providing this. So we select the attribute, we say I want the smallest or the largest. We can set it equal to another attribute in that particular scenario if we prefer, or we can provide a specific value. So, in the case of like the material, we're providing a specific value, right? Is steel for that scenario. Or in the transportation duration situation, we're asking for the smallest, and the total weight, we're going to ask for the largest, because once again, that comes, we want to make sure that it can handle the most weight and move the fastest as possible. And so these are all attributes that have calculations behind them. So we'll kind of hop over real quick into the assembly itself. And let me back up there so I can get the name of the attributes. So for instance, transportation duration. Okay. So we'll hop over into our assembly, hydraulic lift, and transportation. Let's see, maybe a different attribute here. We'll hop over to constraints and constraints. There we go. And let's see, usage. So yeah, so here we'll look at this one here. And this, well, actually, that'll get into our next piece. So I'll demo that here in a second. I'm skipping ahead here. So let's see. But what these are, I'll explain that first here. And here's our high speed, rate speed here. So these are combination tables in which basically we're setting equivalencies. So for instance, if the user selects no for high speed, then the rate is going to be set to 0.6. If they select yes, the rate will be set to 1.6. Now those are fixed values, but these fixed values are ultimately used in an equation. And once again, that equation is an open-ended equation in order to interact with all the other aspects, such as the number of passengers, right? Which would provide a total weight for the elevator. So let's hop back here and let's see. Energy calculations. Yeah, so here we have like number of passengers. Right. Well, that's just setting an equivalence there. That's not the best example. Yeah, so we'll look at this real quick, and then we'll actually see this in action on the carbon footprint side. And so here, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, depending on the country that has been selected, we've got an average passenger weight. We've got a standard that has to be followed. We have the type of energy that is generally used for those areas of the world. And then we have these IDs that then connect back to the optimization engine. We'll look at that here in a second. So these are just some examples of kind of how we can control the configuration. And then once again, we set that in the value assignments area in order to tell it, do we want the high or low end of these different values. So let's look at the sustainability aspect, which is kind of their new piece here. And you'll see it's still an early access environment, but it will be available. In fact, I believe it's available right now, but just with the understanding it's still kind of an early access. So we'll hop into this opportunity and solution. We're going to add a product. Once again, we're creating this lift. And you see here, we now have another window here. So I could look at pricing, different key parameters. And of course, all what is available here is configurable, right? So we could have visualization here too, if we so choose, or whatever. We could set that up how we want. But this new capability provides us the ability to have these charts, and we can see the different values in detail here. So this current scenario, we're in Germany is our installation country, and it's giving us a readout. So we saw this, I showed you this already, where this comes from. So this is just a readout from that chart so we can see what the energy distribution is, the regulations being applied, and so forth. So we're just going to change from Germany to United States, and we can see we get an immediate change in the total carbon footprint here, right? Our transportation went up. and our materials went up and so forth, and our total CO2 output here, we can, for instance, we'll change number of passengers, and it's going to recalculate and give us some new information, right? So we've now gone up, which is expected, right? We're carrying more passengers. It's going to have to be a larger lift. Our CO2 usage will go up. We'll say it's a office building. And then we'll actually change here to United Kingdom. You can see with each change, we're getting a different result. And once again, keep in mind, this is set for carbon, but we have the ability to go in, and we'll look at this a little more detail. We have the ability to change this and make this for whatever we want and so choose, right? So here we get that readout, but then we can also optimize, and we say, you know, I want the lowest CO2 footprint possible. And that's going to update there. And of course, we could also go for highest performance and say, I'm not really concerned about, you know, carbon in this scenario, right? And once again, this, as we continue through our configuration, this will continue to change and update as we continue to further constrain the configuration with our particular needs. So, you know, we'll change this to 2000, and not a huge change, but we get a slight change and so forth. So let's hop back into the back end and kind of see how this particular piece is done. So if we go back to the product model into our hydraulic lift, we have this new tab here, sustainability. And in here, we define our life cycles. So here we have raw material and supply, assembly and packaging, transportation, usage, and disposal, right? And that is right here where we're seeing these totals, and ultimately the pie chart is divided between these different aspects. So once again, in this particular demo, we're looking at carbon, but this could be, you know, anything you ultimately want to define it as. For instance, maybe for certain analytical abilities, you want to define this as different stages of your manufacturing process. So you could see how that is being affected, and, you know, optimize your products for that. You know, maybe there's certain aspects of a particular product that, you know, other than carbon, that the customer is most concerned with. Maybe that's, you know, like in the case of a truck, fuel consumption, right? And you want to see fuel consumption in different scenarios, you know, in different parts of the world, and how that can affect things, because you've got, you know, certain parts of the world, you're going to be higher altitude, lower altitude, and so forth. You could define that here. So you can create whatever life cycles you want. And then here we have the model parameters that these the life cycles will be associated to. And creating this association is very simple. It's simply add parameter. You can give it a name. You know, so we'll just demo, and you select an attribute that you want to pull that information from. These attributes are ultimately from the assembly model itself. So any of these we see here, such as, you know, total weight, car load, motor power. We'll hop over here to our, and we can see here the model attribute is hydraulic lift, transportation or transport boat. So let's go over to our assembly. We'll kind of trace that out. So we'll transport, and we can see transport boat, plane, train, lolly, and so forth. So that particular life cycle attribute is then connected to this assembly attribute. Then, of course, the assembly attribute is being updated and analyzed and so forth as parameters change based upon user input. So once again, we'll kind of hop over to the constraints and have a look here so we can see right here, for instance, they pick, the user picks United States. They have a couple of scenarios in which it could be ocean or air, depending on how they choose to transport it. So we're providing options there. And of course, those options result in different values for these different modes of transportation, okay, and durations and so forth. And then of course, all of these get totaled and added up into the solution. And of course, we can see with each country, we get different options. And for instance, United Kingdom, we only get the ocean option, and that provides these particular numbers and so forth. So you can see, once again, like once we've defined the product model, adding these things on, such as optimization or customer needs, is actually pretty quick and easy to do, because as we saw in that chart where we have all the possible configurations, those things are just narrowing those down, right? Or picking the best one of the available options. So here we've defined all available options. Once again, that ideally is in a range. And then with the optimization or the sustainability aspects, we can analyze and have the configurator provide those results. So let's hop back to our presentation. So once again, in summary, ultimately, we want to improve customer interactions and satisfactions as a manufacturer, right? That's what we ultimately want to achieve. And that's because, once again, everything comes after that aspect. So as best we can achieve that, all other aspects of engineering and manufacturing will become more efficient. And ultimately, that increases profitability. And really, we want to better utilize our internal resources, right? Our engineers, our sales engineers, right? Who are highly knowledgeable, rather than, once again, have them doing this mundane making these selections over and over. Or providing, CAD drawings, for products over and over and over. We can have automation do that. And it all starts here, right? And having the automation do that, then we can utilize their knowledge by even providing them analytical materials through that sustainability piece, so that they can enhance the product, enhance methodologies in producing the product to become even more efficient and profitable. And ultimately, we provide valuable product feedback and analysis for product and sustainability improvements, which is really what I was just talking about. So that concludes our demonstration and coverage of this aspect. Once again, we'll be covering other aspects in the future. So we'll take this time at this point to open it up for any questions anybody has regarding Tacton and this particular aspect. And of course, before we get into that, at any point, if you have any inquiries or questions, you can reach us at support@ketiv.com, or you can call us at 866-465-3848. And we'd be happy to spend some time with you and give you a better understanding and learn how we can help you to ultimately achieve your goals. So with that, we'll see if we have any questions to answer here.